Hey guys, Dobby back at you with another story. Once upon a time, in a quiet coastal town called Eldridge Bay, there lived a woman named Clara Voss. She was 32, sharp-eyed, and worked as a librarian by day while painting stormy seascapes by night. Clara had a habit of walking the same path every evening along the foggy cliffs, a narrow trail lined with jagged rocks and crashing waves below. One Thursday in late October, as the sun dipped low and turned the sky blood orange, Clara set out for her usual walk. The mist was thicker than usual, swallowing the distant lighthouse beam. She didn't notice the black van parked half hidden behind the old boathouse until it was too late. A man stepped out from the shadows. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie and gloves, his face obscured by the hood in the fog. Before Clara could scream, he moved with practiced speed, one hand clamped over her mouth, the other pressing a cloth soaked in something sweet and chemical against her nose. The world blurred, her legs gave out, and she was bundled into the back of a van like a discarded coat. She woke up hours later in a small, windowless room. Concrete walls, a barrel bowl overhead, a thin mattress on the floor, and a plastic bucket in the corner. Her hands were zip tied in front of her, and her phone was gone. The only sound was the distant hum of what might have been a generator. A voice crackled through a small speaker mounted high on the wall. "Welcome, Clara. You're going to help me with a little project." The man's name, she would later learn, was Elias Crow. He wasn't a random predator. He was calculated, almost polite in his madness. He told her he had chosen her because she was invisible enough. No close family, no social media presence. A woman who could disappear for weeks without raising alarms. He needed her for leverage. His real target was a wealthy tech executive named Marcus Hale, who had ruined Elias's brother years earlier in a business deal that left the brother bankrupt and suicidal. Elias's plan was simple and cruel. Keep Clara alive and relatively unharmed. Send proof of life photos and videos of Marcus with escalating demands for money and a public apology. If Marcus refused, Clara would suffer. If he went to the police, Clara would die. For the first 3 days, Clara barely spoke. She studied every inch of the room, listened for patterns in Elias's footsteps, memorized the times he brought her food, always plain sandwiches and bottled water, slid through a slot in the door. On the fourth night, she started talking back through the speaker. Calm, measured questions about his brother, about justice, and whether this would really bring him peace. Elias answered sometimes. He sounded tired more than evil. He admitted he hadn't slept well in months. Clara, drawing on years of listening to patrons pour out their stories in the library, slowly turned the conversations. She didn't beg or scream. She asked about his childhood, about the painting she left unfinished on her easel, about the way the sea looked when the fog lifted. On the seventh day, Elias made a mistake. He opened the door to bring her a fresh bucket and didn't notice that Clara had spent hours loosening the zip ties using the rough edge of metal on the bed frame. When he bent down, she lunged, slamming her shoulder into his chest. Grabbing the small knife he kept clipped to his belt and slashing wildly at his arm. Chaos erupted. Elias roared in pain and grabbed for her, but Clara was faster than he expected. She bolted through the door into a narrow hallway, up a set of creaking wooden stairs, and burst out into a derelict warehouse by the edge of an industrial dock. Rain was pouring down. She ran barefoot across broken glass and gravel, screaming for help even though no one seemed to be around. Elias chased her, blood streaming from his arm, but he was slow, and Clara made it to the chain link fence at the edge of the property. She climbed it desperately, slicing her palms, and dropped to the other side just as Elias reached the fence. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone in a passing truck had seen a woman running and called emergency services. Elias froze. For a moment, their eyes met through the rain. Then he turned and disappeared back into the shadows of the warehouse. Clara collapsed on the wet pavement, shaking, alive. 2 days later, police raided the warehouse. Elias Crow was found in the room where he kept her. Excuse me. Sitting calmly on the mattress with his wounded arm bandaged. He didn't resist arrest. In his confession, he said the strangest thing. She talked to me like I was still a person. For a minute there, I almost let her go. Clara never walked the cliff path again. She finished her stormy seascape painting, adding a small figure on the rocks, tiny but unbroken, watching the waves. And somewhere in prison, Elias Crow still hears her voice asking him questions he never answered. Thanks for listening, guys, and putting up with my speech impediments and my Shatner-esque pauses. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Whatever floats your boat. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.